Okay, this is 7th grade lesson 6.5. This is part 1. In this part of the lesson, students will work with a formula to find the surface area of a cone. The standard covered in this lesson is 7G, 4, and 6. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are 276 through 281, and out of the practice journal, pages 153 through 156. Today we're going to be working with finding the surface area of a cone. So the important part is to understand the pieces that make up that cone. So when you find your surface area, you have two pieces. You have your base, which is a circle, and then you have your lateral surface area, which makes up, like if you think of this like a snow cone, that part of the cone that you hold onto while you're eating a snow cone is actually shaped like this. Okay, if you were to unroll that snow cone, you would see that it's not a rectangle, it's not a triangle, but it's actually a shape that looks like this. Okay, so our surface area consists of those two pieces. The nice thing is we already know the formula for finding the area of a circle, and that is pi r squared, okay? Unfortunately, we have not worked with a shape that looks like this before, so we will have to learn a new formula, and the formula that we're gonna use is pi times r, which is our radius, times that L. And so that you understand what that L stands for, that L is the slant height, or the height from the tip of that cone to that base of the cone. Okay, so the distance from the vertex of the cone, or the point of the cone, to any point on the edge is known as the slant height of the cone. So you're gonna have to understand that they oftentimes will use a cursive L to represent the slant height. Okay, so we're gonna just go ahead and dive in and use this formula. So I am very visual, so I'm gonna go ahead and draw off to the side the pieces that make up this cone. So I have a base that is a circle. Okay, and I'm going to use pi r squared for that. So pi is 3.14. My radius is 1, so times 1 squared. Okay, most important thing to understand is when you're working through these, you have to follow orders of operation. So you must do this part first, your radius squared. So 1 squared is still 1, times 3.14 gives me 3.14 for the area of that circle. Now, I also have the lateral surface area, so it's kind of like it looks like a Pac-Man, kind of. I'm terrible at drawing this, but act like it looks like a good piece. Okay, so it's kind of like it's a circle with a piece cut out of it. So we're going to use this formula here. And yes, that's a new formula too. So we're going to use pi, which is still 3.14, times our radius, which was 1, times the slant. Okay, our slant height is 3. Okay, the nice thing is about both of these formulas, they both have pi first, then the radius, pi, then the radius. It's just that in the lateral surface area, you're not going to do radius squared. You're going to just do the radius times the slant height. Okay, so now if I go through and I multiply all of this out, 3.14 times 1 is 3.14, times 3 gives me 9.42. My final step is to go ahead and add these two pieces together because those are the pieces that make up the cone. So add 9.42 plus 3.14, and when I do that, I get 12.56. Dimensions were meters. This was surface area, and so we are going to label that as squared. Now notice that here I did have up here to work on rounding your answer to the nearest tenth. So let's go ahead and now do that with our answer. So if I go to the nearest tenth, this 6 is going to tell my 5 to jump up to a 6. So final answer would be 12.6 meters squared if we go to the nearest tenth. Okay, if you give me 12.56, I won't count it wrong. It's just that if you were to do a standardized test or a multiple choice test and they had asked you to go to the nearest tenth, that 12.56 probably isn't going to be there. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice another one. Key thing is just practicing the concept, practicing plugging in your information and learning how to use that formula. Okay, so here's our next cone. So we've got our base, which is a circle, and then we have our lateral surface area that's kind of like a Pac-Man thing. Okay, so our formula for the area of a circle is pi, 3.14, times our radius, which is 4, squared. Okay, 4 squared is 16. So I do that in my head. 16 times 3.14 gives me 50.24. Okay, so my formula for my lateral surface area is right here. So we're going to do pi 3.14 times our radius, which was 4, times our slant height. Here's our slant height, which is 5. Okay, so 3.14 times 5 times 4 times 5, which is 20, gives me 62.8. Final step, add them together. So 62.8 plus 50.24. When I do that, I get 113.04. Dimensions were meters. And this is surface area, so it's squared. Okay, very important that you're starting to understand those labels on whether it's area, volume, or just like a perimeter. You have to make sure that you're understanding how to label them properly. Okay, let's try one more together. Okay, so we've got our two pieces. We have a circle, and then we've got our lateral surface areas like Pac-Man. Okay, so for our circle, we're going to do pi 3.14 times our radius, which is 4 squared. So 4 squared is 16 times 3.14 gives me 50.24. Okay, and then for our lateral surface area, it's pi 3.14 times the radius, which was 4, times our slant height, which is indicated right there of 8. And when I do that, I get 100.48. Final step, add them together. And when I do that, I get 150.72. Okay, if they wanted me on this one to go to the nearest tenth, I would say 150.7. You just have to pay attention to your directions and what it asks for. The label is centimeters, and it's area, so it's squared. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you one, and I'd like you to try out one on your own. Okay, so here is your cone. Once again, this cone's the same thing, it's just that it's been turned down on its side. So the pieces that you have are still a circle and that little Pac-Man shape. Now, some of you might need to draw those shapes, and some of you might be able to just jot them down. I'm a visual person, so I tend to go ahead and do those. Plus, when I visually draw this one, it makes me think of this part of the formula and what I'm using. Okay, so go ahead, pause your video, work your way through this one, and then check back in just a minute to see how you did. Okay, you should have gotten 50.24 feet squared because it's surface area. So that's it for this part of the lesson. We'll be diving into some different parts of the lesson tomorrow. Key thing on this is you have two parts that make up the surface area of that cone. Those parts include the area of a circle, which is a previously learned concept. That's not anything new. And then adding on your lateral surface area. This is a new formula. So remembering that the lateral surface area is going to be pi times your radius times your slant. Adding those two together will give you the total surface area. Good luck with this.